Jason talked about some of the stuff Andrew Berry said. I want to do some quick hitters on some of the other stuff, kind of like we did with Stefanski. But first, a reminder that with March Madness officially here, the Final Four is still ahead of us. FanDuel is still giving you guys the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. That is $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories. Even who's going to cut down the nets, just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and get it on the college hoops action all tournament long. We got some winning FanDuel tickets from yesterday's Cavs win over the Clippers. First up, Joshua Heisler had a multi-part same-game parlay that turned $50 into $226.76. All the Cavs props he put in hit. Also a winning ticket from Benjamin Sanders, another one with the Cavs back thanks to a balanced attack. Ben turned $25 into $262.61. So if you have any winning FanDuel tickets, make sure you send them in to us so we can feature them here on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Nice. So Andrew Berry talked yesterday, and he said a couple things similar to Stefanski, nothing that jumped out as monumental, but a couple things I did think were worth touching on here today. We'll get to the JOK thing in a sec, but first, Stefanski said that the Browns remain open with the number 2 pick, still doing their due diligence. They have not made a decision yet, specifically on who they are targeting at number 2. Jay, you said earlier you don't buy that. You think they have their mind made up? Or are you actually going to believe Andrew Berry here when he says they don't know less than a month after?
Yeah, no, I believe there's some uncertainty. I believe they know which direction they're leaning. But I don't think that they've, put the name on the card yet. And I don't think they should.
I don't believe any of the rumors out there because I don't think the Browns are putting that information out there. So this idea that there's momentum going.
Do you think that they would be putting smokescreen, like disinformation?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I always, I've said it a million times, but when the team is leading you, dropping breadcrumbs, it's usually not on the trail.
Well, and that's why and I don't know, but when Schefter says, well, it's trending towards Abdul Carter, I'm just like, well, the Browns are not putting that. If they are, it's not true. I mean,
right, that's what I believe.
No reason to put the truth out there.
No. Now, they might be hearing from other teams, and now other teams will do that, which is, it's really, it's almost to your benefit to not talk to anyone until you're really certain what you want to do. Like, do I want to trade?
Yeah.
If you're the Giants and you're picking up the phone and you're calling the Browns or you're calling the Titans, you're blowing your hand. Like, it's early in the game. We've got a month. Right. You don't need to do that. What I've learned before from guys like Schefter, he learns more from the other teams in the league about what, like in this case, the Browns.
Yeah.
He knows that he was one of the guys that told me if their lips are moving in the pre-draft season, they're lying. But he's also smart and savvy enough and done this enough to understand that the information that you pick up from other teams, that's the information. Right. Now, they can also throw you off track.
That's true.
But a lot of times, if he talks to the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Chargers, and all three have sources in their organization that say, I can tell you what, man, the Browns, that they're infatuated with Abdul Carter.
Right.
Because they talk at dinners and at the draft combine over drinks, and that stuff slips out. So when Schefter reports something like that, he's not getting it from the Browns.
Right.
He's getting it from the other teams in the league.
Right. The one thing I'll say, though, is like the Browns are basically bad at everything. But the one thing they're good at, the one thing they've actually been good at is keeping things quiet with this current group. Like that Myles Garrett extension, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, you're right.
We hadn't heard a single rumor about a Myles Garrett extension. And then all of a sudden it's there.
Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett trade. We've seen that with a lot of the extensions.
But look at the smoke that there's been around things that never happened.
Right. Yes.
I mean, we've.
Well, then Shedeur Sanders is not coming to Cleveland.
It could be. I don't know.
No, who knows? It's silly season. Do they know who they're going to pick? No. Do they probably have a good idea? Probably.
That's where I am.
I'm sure they've got it down to a list of 2 or 3 players. Probably,
and I think they've made the organizational decision that. And I'm just making this up.
Yeah.
The quarterback we need is not in this draft, so we're not going to overreach. I'm making that up. I'm not reporting that. What I'm saying is, likely they've made those judgments. They haven't made the judgment that it's got to be a defensive end or it's got to be a wide receiver cornerback combo. But I think that the big treetop stuff, and they've probably scratched some guys from their list. That's where you start. You make a list of your needs, then you make a list of the players that would fit those needs, then you start crossing off names not this guy, he's not our guy, or because of either a physical trait they don't like or a personality trait they don't like. But they do start scratching names off, and they slowly whittle it down until there's one name left, and that's when they turn in the card.
In terms of like relating this to football, it's just like how they game plan for a game. Okay, on the big Waffle House menu where they okay, it's 3rd and 7. Okay, 3rd and 7. Okay, I'm gonna pass. So they've got a list. So like they know exactly what scenarios could happen.
Right.
And then they got boom, boom, boom. So they make it easy. The prep that they're putting in now is going to make it very easy for them on draft night to make that decision. And why make the decision now, even in your own minds, when you don't have to?
No,
You've got another 20-something days.
Right, but it's pretty simple in the end.
Well, of course it is.
Right.
They pick second, so there's only one scenario that they can.
Right.
If
they assume, if the assumption is that Ward's going to go first, it's a pretty safe assumption. They've got to. Their next question is: do we like Shedeur Sanders enough to take him at 2?
That's the
because
question.
if you do, it's a no-brainer. You take him.
That is the question.
If the answer is yes, then the decision is made. If the answer is no, then you're deciding probably between Carter and Hunter, and that's
right.
it.
But it's still like the choose your own adventure books back in the day, where you don't know where it's going to go because all of a sudden, what if the Titans don't take Cam? Or what if the Titans trade out to somebody else? And like you have to be ready for every possible scenario.
But there are less things like that.
Yeah, there's fewer, like if you're picking 13th. My God, you've
got a list of 30 guys.
You better.
Maybe
now,
50 guys.
The one thing, Bull, you said there's 2 scenarios. There's if Ward's there and if he's not.
Yeah.
The other scenario that exists, and this is a very serious scenario, I don't know what the Giants are doing. Are they being run? Does Haslam own them too? What are the Giants doing? So they have Russ Wilson and
Jameis.
They also have Jameis Winston. And there's heavy smoke coming from New York that they want a quarterback in this draft.
Right.
So what if they want Shedeur and the Browns are savvy enough to put, we're going to take Shedeur at number 2 out there. Now, if you're the Browns, you can say, okay, New York, we're going to swap 2 and 3 so you can get your guy, but we want your 3rd, or we want some other asset.
Yeah.
So that's another scenario that they have to be thinking about, like, how much do the teams that pick 3, 4, 5, and 6, because those are realistic dance partners, how much do those teams want one of the guys that is still on the board? And if it's 6 and they are in love with Sanders and they're thinking, no, he is our guy, these other teams aren't sure, we're going to go from 6 to 2 to get our guy. If you're Cleveland, hopefully you've already had some of those conversations with those teams. But the reason why it's always a fire drill after that name is called is because now the action gets hot and heavy on the phones.
Right.
Now the GMs are calling. Now,
the Titans could be doing the same thing for the first pick.
Well, they are. I mean, they've already said we'll listen to trades. You'd be stupid to announce who you're going to take right now. It's happened. Now, in years where it's Joe Burrow, okay, I'll play your silly game.
Yeah.
But in this draft, it would be absolutely counterproductive for Tennessee to do anything other than what they've done. They've come out and said, we'll talk about drafts.
Right.
That tells me they don't love someone that's there, or it tells me they love someone that's there, but not so much that they wouldn't be able to move if the price was right.
Yeah, potentially.
So
right? There's no downside to keeping an ear open to any potential offer for another team. I mean, you'd be silly to close off an option without hearing it.
I agree. Keep all of your options open and see where it goes.
Something else Andrew Berry said was in regards to JOK. Dustin, I'm curious how you take what Andrew Berry said about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He said, quote, he is progressing, which is a positive. I'll be honest, it is still a little bit nebulous in terms of what that time frame looks like. So, yeah, we are really trying to deal with it week to week and month to month, end quote. Which, at least in my mind, makes it seem like if you ever get anything from JOK again, that is a luxury.
Yeah, I mean,
Dustin,
I'm fully prepared for him not to play this season, and basically that right there tells you that they're preparing that he may never play again. I mean, if it's week to week, month to month, I mean,
then he's one more.
What's after month to month?
Yeah, right.
Year to year, like okay, so we're done.
Yeah,
at that point in time, and it's unfortunate. I really hope that this kid. I don't care about football for this young man. I care about him being healthy for the rest of his life. I'm sure he would love to play football, and we as Browns fans would love to have him out there on the field, but it just doesn't, unfortunately, sound very optimistic right now, guys.
Do we know exactly what his injury is? I can't remember.
I was just going to ask you the same thing. Do we know exactly what it is with his neck?
Mike, do we know what it is?
I will look it up.
I feel like it's been very cagey.
It was a neck injury, though.
Yeah, that's all I've ever heard about it.
Really
but, like,
vague.
is it a C4 5? Is it what, I don't know. What is it specifically?
Right.
My fear is with these injuries, and I'm sure that you know this, you've either played with guys or you saw guys that had this happen. When the doctor comes to you and says, look, ultimately, you can do whatever you want. If this was me or my son, there's no way I'd let him put on a helmet again, ever. Because you're one hit away from living your life in a wheelchair or something like that.
Yeah.
That's where it gets, it's kind of like Denzel with the concussions. At
Jay,
some
real
point,
quick, all they say is in multiple articles, ESPN, Yahoo, and NFL.com, I just checked all 3, quote, severe neck injury, no specifics on what it is.
I mean, if he doesn't play this year, you got to think his career is over. I mean, what's going to change? It's not like he missed half of last season. If after 2 years all of a sudden he can play, that I don't know.
That risk doesn't go away.
Let's be honest, guys. I mean, the fact that they are so vague with the injury,
right?
That's not good.
Yeah, most of these guys we know what's going on to some degree. They'll talk about it. I mean, if it's
and severe neck injury.
Obviously it's a shame from a human standpoint, from a football standpoint. I mean, his arrow was pointing up as much as any player on this team.
I mean, we knew the second something happened with Deshaun what it was. They talked about it. It's like, okay, he's got an ACL, he's got an Achilles, he's got this. So we don't know what this is specifically. But you say severe, and you're talking about head or neck. Yeah. That's a scary deal.
Yeah.
It really is.
Sucks.
Yeah, it does suck on a human level. I know the fans are saying, "Wow, he was so good," but like you said, this young man has his whole life ahead of him.
Right.
And he hopes to be able to live it as normal as possible.
Right.
And when to me, if a doctor told me I'm one hit away from the wheelchair, I don't care how much money they're paying me. My life is more important than
100%.
that. And the quality of life that you have.
Yeah.
It'd be an easy decision for me, but it's not an actual decision. So I'm sure.
Last thing from any other
thoughts?
thoughts on JOK before we get to our last thing?
No, we're good.
No.
Last
Godspeed.
thing from Andrew Berry before we dive into some Cavs and then wrap up with some Ohtani versus Hunter stuff. But he said when asked about the future of the quarterback room, he said, quote, "Will probably skew young." He said he also knew that Kirk Cousins was in Cleveland because of the Instagram and Twitter posts he saw, but it was not an official meeting with the Browns. When you hear Andrew Berry say the quarterback room will probably skew young, does that tend you to believe that they are out of the Kirk Cousins deal, or is this just lip service for the sake of lip service into March?
I think they want to let Atlanta know that they're not going to get fleeced if there's a trade. If here's what would be bad for Cleveland. We'd like to very much to still add a seasoned veteran to our roster. Because if I'm in Atlanta now, I'm like, okay, I got a sucker on the hook. I'm ready to go. And the best case scenario for Atlanta is you get 2 teams, and then you get a bidding war, and that ratchets the price up. But if I'm Cleveland right now, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, we're going to be young. We've made the decision that we're going forward with the room we have. Probably going to draft 2 guys or draft a guy and sign a free agent. We'll go to war with 3 guys, and we're good. Again, it never helps you to play your hand. So I'm not predicting it's going to happen, but I'm still saying, to me, it's a possibility that Kirk Cousins is in a Browns helmet next year, and I think a pretty good possibility.
I tend to agree with you. I think that we'll know a lot more probably here once the draft gets underway, but like Cousins does make probably the most sense from a veteran standpoint right now that would fit Stefanski, what he wants to do to kind of get them back on track, level off the organization again, because it's felt like it's been an unsteady ship the last, 18 months or whatever, with the end of really Deshaun's career here in Cleveland. So they need somebody like this guy. I mean, I will not feel good about this season if it's just Kenny Pickett.
I won't either.
But
and
here's
I think
the thing,
fan
guys.
base won't.
Yeah.
I understand that Kirk Cousins is probably the best player that they could get to play
It's
quarterback.
not a great option, though.
But ultimately, he's not a great option.
No.
He's probably done or close to it. And I just think you see the Steelers with all these stopgap moves, and they've been good, and they get to the playoffs, and they lose in the first round every year. And to me, with Kirk Cousins, that's your absolute best case scenario. And I don't think they're as good a roster as the Steelers. Certainly not on offense. They're not even close. But I don't think you're winning that many games with Kirk Cousins. What does it accomplish getting Kirk Cousins? So you'll win maybe 6-7 games instead of 3-4. Maybe for the coaches they feel that way. I'm not giving up any draft picks of value. Like I'll give up a late round pick, but I'm not giving up anything of value to get Kirk Cousins.
I think it could end up taking a 4th or 5th round pick
I'm not giving up.
That's all it takes. I'd do that.
I would not, because
I would do it in a heartbeat.
But why?
You gave up 3 number ones for Deshaun. What'd you get?
But you did that because you thought at the time he was going to be a superstar.
If you
But
give
Adam,
up a fourth,
what are we trying to do here? We're trying to get this.
well, I'm not trying to get to 6 or 7 wins.
can I tell you what we're trying to do here?
Yeah.
If I'm Jimmy Haslam?
But Adam, you need to get
Yeah.
6 or 7 wins.
Yes, and I'll tell you why that doesn't sound like
Unfortunately, yeah.
much, but it's
Yeah.
important. Hey, you're doubling your win
You're on
total.
the same page as me. I can tell.
You're Jimmy Haslam.
Yeah.
You're asking the state, the city, and the county
Yeah.
for hundreds of millions of dollars. You're also trying to convince a fan base that when we do make this move, $800 a ticket won't be that bad. You can't put another 3-win season out there. You just can't.
But
the tide is slipping away. Timing is very important right now. He's got to make this look like a professional organization. The way it's not Kenny Pickett, it's this guy. And I'm not saying you're gonna win the Super Bowl with them or you're gonna even make the playoffs, but you've got to get back to respectability. They're not right now. And I loved the way you phrased it. You go, is it a great option? No, but it's probably the best option. No. When I talk to fans, a lot of times I look at them, I'm like, you think we have a filet budget? We don't.
We got a burger budget, man.
We got a McDonald's budget. You do the best with what you have. That's all you can do. When have they had the most success in the last 3 years? With an aging quarterback that got us to the playoffs. Could they repeat that with this roster and Kirk Cousins? Yeah. I think they could win 9 games. That's the ceiling. You're not going anywhere, and I don't even know 9 gets you in.
Yeah.
But I do know this. The temperature in the room around what Jimmy's trying to do with the stadium goes up dramatically if you're 9-8 and you play meaningful football in December than if you're 2-11 in November and the season's over.
I just think 9-8 is a long shot.
I do too, Bull. I do too, but it's possible.
I just think if as a fan, I don't want to be conned into believing my team is okay by stopgapping Kirk Cousins and trying to be mediocre. I want my team to have a real chance to win.
So how do you do that then?
I'd rather my team suck and have a better draft pick. I know a lot of people in this
they did
season.
last year.
You don't think
they did last year.
But Bull, he's trying to build this stadium. He's asking a lot of people for a lot
but
of money.
Browns fans are not going anywhere, no matter how bad the team is.
I'm looking at it from a different perspective than you are. You're looking at it from like Jimmy's trying.
You're
to
saying the coach is going to get fired if they don't win.
Well, he is.
I'm saying that's important.
So is the GM.
That's obviously both of those are very.
And so if you're the coach and the
important.
GM, who do you want to bring in here? The guy that gives you the best chance to win 9 games, not Kenny Pickett.
But that's counterproductive to the long-term health of the organization.
But we've seen teams do that a lot.
I know.
Especially when GMs and life and head coaches are swimming on a life raft and it's losing air. It's got a hole in it.
Yeah.
Like that's their situation.
Now, again, this is all assuming they don't take a quarterback at 2. If they take a quarterback at 2, they're not trading for Kirk Cousins.
I doubt they will.
You know, they're
But
going to.
I would do
never
both.
been part of my plan.
I would potentially do both. I would if I'm taking let's say Shador ends up being a Brown.
Yeah.
Number 2.
Do it as a tutor.
Yeah, I think it's important.
But why couldn't you do that with Kenny Pickett?
Well, do you really want who do you want tutoring your guy? Kenny Pickett?
Kenny Pickett's still a young.
Kirk Cousins?
Kenny Pickett still needs some tutoring.
I hear
Yes,
you, but
exactly. He could benefit from Kirk Cousins being
You
here.
said it. First of all, Kirk Cousins is not going to want to come here to be a backup when he could just stay in Atlanta and be a backup.
If he comes here,
He's the starter
First
if he
off,
comes here.
if he comes here, he's going to be the starter.
Yes.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, guys. Like he's not going to make it 17 games.
When's the last
Probably
time
not.
the second pick in the draft sat a whole season?
He won't sit.
Yeah,
He won't sit because Cousins will get hurt by week 12.
Yeah.
And then you've got your perfect scenario where this guy's had a chance to sit there and learn from a seasoned veteran, watch the game so you can see the speed difference, and slowly acclimate to it. Instead of Baker, it's week 3. All right, here you go, bud.
I think
And
that
if Cousins doesn't, sorry, Adam,
Yeah,
if
go
Cousins
ahead.
doesn't get hurt, which I'm like kind of like tongue in cheek saying it's going to be hard. He's been hurt the last several years. He's 37 years old. He's not getting younger.
Yeah.
Point in saying that is like let's say it's week 11, week 12. And he's not playing well, whatever.
Yeah.
But then the kid's starting to develop.
Right.
You throw the kid in.
Yes.
you could. I just think,
Especially if the season's already a loss.
Yes.
I'm not as convinced they're going to trade for Cousins as you guys are. I think if they do, I just think it's more likely they'll do it if they're not drafting a quarterback at 2. I think it's more, because then, let's say you draft a quarterback at 33 or you trade up to the late 20s, then you're more likely to let that guy sit, maybe even for a whole year potentially if you can.
But isn't that the definition of a bridge quarterback? You've got your future guy here.
Right.
You're gonna grease the skids for him, build some runway for him to have some success with a guy that he can sit back and watch, even if it is for 10 weeks. That's 3 months. In the NFL, a guy can progress in 3 months.
I don't know. I wouldn't do it. I ultimately would not trade for Kirk Cousins, but I won't be surprised if they do.
Okay.
All right, let's talk a little Cavs, guys. They got